remember as you carry out your plan. All of us are members of the family of woman and man.
Yes, okay, well thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the kickoff for San Francisco Schools and Communities First campaign. Welcome, yes. That is fantastic. We have people from all over the city. We have working people from a bunch of different unions. We have students. We have community organizers. We have community members. It is really fantastic to have you all with us here today. I just want to start out by saying how important it is to us here at San Francisco Rising to really be bringing together all these people. I think a lot of the time we kind of get together either with our unions or with our fellow students or with the people on our block or all these different things. But it's rare that we get to actually be in one of these spaces with everybody all here together. And it's incredibly powerful. And we feel very lucky to get to be here with you all. So just can you give a hand to yourselves for all making it here today? That is fantastic. So we have a pretty full day today, which includes a bunch of really fantastic speakers and also an opportunity to get out there and start this movement of really getting schools and communities first on the ballot and making sure that we win it and really bring all these resources and all this strength right back here to San Francisco. And so without further ado, I'm going to jump right into it. Can y'all see that? Okay, cool. So here are some goals for today's training and kickoff. We're going to start out by learning a bunch about the Schools and Communities First proposal and our plan to win. Then we're going to jump into training our volunteers on how to collect signatures to get Schools and Communities First on the ballot. We're then going to really be showing this commitment and showing this strength to be the spark, to be the grassroots spark for this movement, and to develop a plan to really recruit a bunch of more people to be a part of this. And then we're going to really practice collecting those signatures, and we're going to put that practice into practice, I guess, by getting out there and doing it ourselves. How does that sound to folks? Does that sound good? That's great. Yeah, so here's a quick agenda. We're doing the welcome right now. We're then going to jump into what is SCF and why it matters and why it's really going to impact us and our communities here in San Francisco. Then we're going to talk about how we win, how we get this onto the ballot and then really are successful with it come November of 2020. Then we're going to jump into the signature gathering training and really making sure that we're doing it all right so that every one of our signatures is counted and that we can show strength when we send it back to the state. And then we're going to get together for a really strong and powerful and beautiful group photo with all of your wonderful faces. And then we're going to jump out there and get out onto the streets and really get these signatures and start this movement. So yeah, before we jump into the training, I just wanted to shout out some of the folks who are in the room. So you can see on a bunch of these different signs around the room a bunch of the different co-hosts for this. We would love you to talk all about this event on social media, really show the kind of strength that we have here in San Francisco. And yes, we have our wonderful guides to the sheets. Some of the groups, so as I said, I'm David with San Francisco Rising. We're all part of the Schools and Communities First campaign. We have SEIU 10 to 1 in the house. Can I hear it for SEIU 10 to 1? We also have SEIU 2015 in the house. Let's hear for that. We have IFPTE Local 21 in the house. And AFT 2121. And UESF, the educators here in San Francisco. Thank you. And are there any other groups that are in here that want to be shouted out? I know we have some Sunrise folks in here too, so thank you so much, Sunrise folks, for being here.
San Francisco Living Wage Coalition.
I heard San Francisco Living Wage Coalition, so let's give it up for them. And Jobs with Justice, thank you so much.
California Alliance for Retired Americans, CARA.
Boom, CARA, California Alliance for Retired Americans. Thank you. Who is that?
OPEIU Local 29.
Beautiful, OPEIU Local 29. That's amazing. Anybody else? Any last ones?
CPS
CPA, thank you so much, the Chinese Progressive Association. Also, I know that we have CJJC, Casa Justa Just Cause, thank you. Yeah, there's, I'm sorry. And MUA, thank you so much. MUA in the house. That's fantastic. So yes, as we said, this is a really, really unbelievably powerful coalition. And this is what it's going to take to really bring this home and to bring, California forwards, both in terms of passing schools and communities first, and really making sure that we, build the movement to get those resources and put them in the right place. So yes, thank you so much for being here. I have the extreme privilege of getting to announce our first speaker for the day, and that is, or our first two speakers, which is Jenny Worley, who is the president of AFT 2121, and an English professor here at SF City College, and also we have Marcos Cruz, who's going to get up here in a second. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks. Is there a mic? No, I'm just yelling. That's okay. Okay, I can do that. Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out today for Schools and Community First. I'm Jenny from AFT 2121 City College, San Francisco Faculty Union.
Bravo.
I just wanted to say a few words about what Schools and Communities First is going to mean for our college, for our students, and also for the larger community in the state of California. When I first started teaching at the college level, I finished graduate school and I went out and I got 2 part-time jobs, because that's how it is in the academic world now. I got one at City College, San Francisco, woo-woo, and another job at a local private university. And boy, did I get an education when I went into education. At the private university where I taught, my class had 15 students. At City College, my class had 31 students, right? And these students had the same teacher, they had the same syllabus, they were getting the same number of credits, right? But at my other college, at the private college, we had a tiny little class. I got to know each student by name. If the class went over, if more than 15 students wanted to get in this class, the university would add another section. They wouldn't ask me to take more students. They would add another section so those students could have the class they wanted. At City College, what we were forced to do, if the students wanted to get in my class, but it was already full, those students were told, hey, you gotta wait another semester to graduate, right? You're gonna push back this required course. At the private college where I taught, we had beautiful wood-paneled classrooms with giant arch windows, natural lighting. It was a pleasure to be in the classroom. At City College, my students were in a cinder block classroom with no windows. When we wanted to watch a movie or have a PowerPoint, I pressed a button at the private college and a projector came down and a screen came down and I hooked up the computer that was provided for me. At City College, I had to reserve ahead of time and get a little cart with a TV on it, to bring it to the classroom. At the private school, my students had housing that was secure. They had dining rooms with multiple choices to eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They had health care and nurses on campus. At City College, my students were coming to me on a weekly basis. I can't make it to class this week. I'm going to do the reading, but I have to help. My mom's losing her Section 8 housing. I couldn't do the homework. We got an eviction notice. I have to help my parents keep our apartment or find a new one. For my night classes at City College, if the students came straight from work to a 6 p.m. class, they didn't have a beautiful dining room with multiple choices. There was a food truck. They didn't have access to immediate health care. They didn't have access to nurses right away when they needed it on campus. There was waits at the student health center. And this is because public education in this state has been chronically underfunded since Proposition 13 passed. And the difference here between these two schools was that the parents of the students at this private university were the CEOs and the board members of corporations who had clawed back the money that they were now paying for this lovely, privileged private education, clawed that back from my students at City College. The students at City College were the workers at those corporations, or the children of those workers at those corporations. And we're here today because those students at City College, those students in our public schools, deserve every goddamn thing that the students in those private universities get and take for granted. I'm tired of my students being told, you don't deserve this. You don't deserve small classes. You don't deserve for your professor to get to know your name. You don't deserve to meet in an office with your instructor. You don't deserve state-of-the-art tech in your classroom. You don't deserve stable housing so that you can study. You don't deserve health care. You don't deserve food security. Our students do deserve this, and they deserve it just as much as the kids of CEOs and CFOs deserve it, and we're here today to make sure that they're gonna get it.
Bravo.
These issues, of course, this whole model where some people are deserving and some people are not, it extends far beyond the classroom. It extends to housing security, to food security, to healthcare, to our libraries, to all of our public services, to our nurses, our social workers, and we're here to get all of these community services fully funded so that all Californians have the services, the schools that they deserve. Thank you.
Bravo.
Hi everybody, my name is Marcos. I am a student organizer with AFT 2121, and I'm just here to talk a little bit about what it's like to be a student, I guess, in a publicly underfunded system, right? I know exactly what Jenny's talking about, overcrowded classrooms, facilities that need updating. Generally, not having resources in our schools is something that every student at City College has to deal with. Every student in our public classrooms in the K-12 system, they have to deal with that as well. And the truth is that, it's just a matter of treating everybody fairly, making sure that the people in our society that have the most actually contribute back and kick back the money that they're supposed to do, they're supposed to give us, right? We are owed this money. It's not that we're asking for more, we're just asking for what is owed of, these corporations that have, effectively not paid the taxes that they should be paying for many, many years now. And, we live in a country now where billionaires are paying the same tax rate than the, poorest people in society, and that is simply unacceptable. We can't have 40 people in our classrooms. We can't move every single class we have online to cut costs. We can't be firing all our part-time faculty, but we also can't have all our faculty be part-time. We need to be able to fully fund our programs, our schools, our communities, and the communities that the resources that we all need. And this is the way to do it. Making sure that we are asking for the fair money that these corporations owe us. As a student, I feel very excited to start this conversation seriously again. I think it's time for young people to really step up to the plate and say that we won't accept this as the normal. That's not the way things are going to be here in San Francisco, in California, but also in the United States, right, in the world that we want to live in. This is like a first step to making our state more just, and I'm really looking forward to work with everybody, to work with people at City College, at SF State, all the institutions here that have a stake in having more public funding. We really have to come out and do the best job that we can to get this passed in 2020. We have a great head start. There's a great room of people here. SF Rising is awesome. David is awesome. So, the truth is that I really feel hopeful that we'll get this done. And yeah, just thanks for being here, and let's get those signatures, right?
Bravo.
Yeah, wow. Thank you both, Marcos and Jenny. Wow, that is an incredibly powerful and real testimony about why we need this schools and communities first, right? For the last 40 years, they've been taking and taking and taking and taking, and we need to take back. And this is true for everybody. It's true for the students. It's true for the teachers. It's true for all of our different community members. It's true for nurses. It's true for people building houses. All of these different things are gonna really change when we pass schools and communities first, and that's the power of what we're doing here. So now we get to learn a little bit more about what is actually happening with schools and communities first, and I'm really excited to announce Bianca Polovina, who is here with IFPTE Local 21. They are a proud San Francisco resident, and without further ado, Bianca, thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for that great introduction. My name is Bianca Polovina. I work for the City and County of San Francisco at the Office of Labor Standards Enforcement. Thank you, Ken. I enforce a little law called the Healthcare Security Ordinance. I'm also, thank you. And in addition to being a proud and active Local 21 member, I have the privilege of being married to a youth services librarian in the Western Addition branch, a proud active SEIU 10-to-1 member, and I married into a union family as well. My mother-in-law has been teaching at West Portal School for, she might not like me to say this, at least 30 years now at this point. So she's a proud active UESF member. Schools and Communities First is incredibly important to me, and I'm honored to get the chance to walk through with all of you what Schools and Communities First will do and how we will transform the state of California together. So let's first talk about our campaign goals. We have some very audacious goals, but we're going to get them done. First and foremost, what we're doing here today and what we will be doing for the next year is working to reclaim $12 billion every single year for the entire state of California. The way that we are going to do this is we are going to make corporations pay their fair share. This will be a history-making event. We're going to stop divesting from our schools and local communities, flip the script, and start investing in our future, stop the starvation that's been happening for the last 40 or so years. So what I would like to talk a little bit about is what this is going to look like. A lot of us live and work in San Francisco. If you don't live or work in San Francisco but live or work elsewhere, feel free to participate and talk about how this impacts your local community. We see it pretty regularly. We see crumbling infrastructure. We are all too familiar with the education crisis, as well as cuts to social services. So basically, what we're trying to correct here is a loophole that has starved the rest of us from what we deserved and gone to pad the pockets of corporations. Please raise your hand if you have seen any vacant lots where you work, where you live, where you go to school, where you worship, pretty much anyone in the room. Does anyone know why people keep these lots vacant?
Because the longer they keep them vacant, the higher the rents they can get, because the market keeps going up and the rents keep getting higher. So there's an incentive to keep them open.
That's a great point. Anyone else have anything to share? Yes?
Their property taxes have flatlined, so it doesn't cost them anything to do that.
Exactly, that too. It's a two-headed monster, right? As long as these properties are left vacant, their property taxes remain as low as possible. This is a calculated strategy to basically screw the rest of us over while they continue to build their wealth. So basically what we're looking for is an opportunity to make corporations pay their fair share of taxes. So what we'd like to talk about a little bit today, this is not a very fun part of the presentation because now we have to review exactly how awful this 40-plus year history of starving our schools and local communities impacts us today. We hear stuff all the time in the press about how California has achieved the lowest employment rate in recent years, right? We've all seen that. Things like our counties have never been more flush with cash. We have the 5th largest economy in the world. That's just one part of the story. We also live in a state where 1 in 5 children are living in poverty. So we have incredible stratification throughout the entire state of California. We used to be middle of the pack, or maybe even better than middle of the pack in terms of what we invested in per pupil spending in this state. As of today, we have plummeted to 39th out of all 50 states. And further, we can see it every single day. Our public transit, our libraries, our roads, we all see the impacts of how this corporate loophole continues to take from the rest of us and solidify and strengthen the top 1%. The statistic that I personally find the most appalling and insulting is this. In the last 40 years, or ever since Proposition 13 has been the law, we as a state have lost out on $150 billion total. Those are taxes that should have been paid by commercial property owners that never were. Imagine what our state would look like today. Imagine if what our state, is this better? Awesome, okay. Imagine what our state would look like today if we had had that investment of $150 billion from 1978 to the present. Anyone have any thoughts on how your schools and your local communities might be different with corporations paying their fair share of taxes?
Fewer cuts.
Fewer cuts?
No cuts.
What else?
No cuts.
No cuts. What about some investments?
New facilities.
That's right. Anything else?
Healthcare for all public workers.
Healthcare for all public workers. How about healthcare for everybody? Yeah? There's so much that is possible that we could achieve if only corporations paid their fair share of taxes. And this is another thing to think about, right? Like these are services to the public. This is something that everyone is supposed to benefit from. There are people in this state, corporations in their state, who are using the same roads that we use, using the same parks that we use, even using the same schools that we use, but they are not paying their fair share. They're not paying the investment that we all deserve as an entire people of California. But we do have a solution, obviously, and we're talking about it today, so it's not all bad. Schools and Communities First is basically going to at least begin to correct some of these major issues. So I want to talk a little bit in detail. I think I'm going to skip. Basically, I just wanted to give a little bit of context with what this looks like specifically in San Francisco County. The University of Southern California has done some really excellent research, and what we're looking at right now is $900 million every single year in extra money for San Francisco County. That's for our schools, that's for our roads, that's for our parks, that's for our public transit, that is for everything that all of us use every day, for things that we deserve. And furthermore, some of the things that we just talked about could actually start to happen if everyone's paying their fair share of taxes. The types of companies that this is going to impact are Bank of America, Exxon, Chevron. So let's talk about the solutions specifically and sort of segue into what we need in order to connect with voters, what we need in order to gather some of these signatures for people who might be a little bit hesitant or even openly hostile. What we're hoping is the overwhelming evidence here is going to support our position, and that we're going to be not only successful, but convincingly successful at the polls in November 2020. Basically, this closes that 40-year loophole that should have never happened. So many people, when they voted for Proposition 13 back in the late 70s, had no idea that this was going to apply to commercial property. This is our chance to correct the record. Again, for the entire state of California, what we're projecting is $12 billion per year, every single year. And furthermore, this is about making sure that everyone is playing on the same field. Any questions so far? Okay. Let's talk a little bit about where this funding is actually going. This certainly, for some of us, that's one of the main questions that we get. 40% to schools, 60% to local governments. Things that affect every single parts of our lives. One thing that I wanted to make clear is that new revenue is not going to replace existing state funding. This is going to be additional money, which is very important. To ensure equity, all of the new revenue is going to be pooled statewide into a special fund, which is called the Local School and Community College Property Tax Fund, and dispersed based on student need. In addition, new revenue is going to support basic aid for school districts that are funded by local property taxes, but currently receive no money from the LCFF, or Local Community College Fund. So, what would you improve in our schools and communities after our convincing success in November 2020 at the ballot? Anyone have any ideas? Think big, think bold.
Public restrooms.
That's right.
Open all day.
Anyone else? That's very important. Thank you, John.
Teacher salaries.
Teacher salaries.
Lifelong learning.
In every classroom.
That's right.
Lifelong learning.
Absolutely.
Mental health services on demand.
Mental health services on demand. That's right.
Our streets to be prepared.
That's right.
Free money.
That's right. Thank you. Yes.
Free college.
Free college. Exactly. Exactly. So this is the California that we can create. What's next? What happens next is up to us, right? And so just very briefly, we wanted to talk about who pays and who doesn't pay. The most important thing for everyone to know is that homeowners are completely protected. This has nothing to do with residential property anywhere in the entire state of California. Instead, who is going to pay? Large commercial property owners. This is not us, this is the top 1%. Basically, over 80% of all of this new revenue that's coming in is going to come from only 8% of all commercial property owners. So, and again, just one quick thing to keep in mind, this is not a new tax. It's very important for all of us to know this is not a new tax. This is about restoring things to where they always should have been and correcting the past. Now, we're going to talk, oh, I'm sorry, you have a question back here?
Yeah, could you draw that line there? Because if you have a mom and pop store where the people live above the store, is that a commercial property?
That may be a commercial property.
Is it going to be then taxed?
Not if the building is worth less than $3 million.
Oh.
So that is a nice big exemption. So the true mom and pop businesses are also going to be protected. That's a great question. Thank you. I am out of my team.
But Diego, remember you say if it's a residential on top and commercial on the bottom is considered residential, it would not be included in this.
That's a great point too. For mixed use buildings, this is not going to apply to the part of the mixed use building that is residential. It will apply only to the part of the mixed use building that is commercial. Thank you. I am out of my time right now, so now we're going to talk about how we win. Thank you all for your attention.
Wow, thank you so much, Bianca. That was fantastic, so comprehensive, really amazing. I now have the privilege of introducing Annabelle, who is the political director of UESF, and she's going to tell us how we win.
Buenos dias. Annabelle Ibanez, political director with United Educators of San Francisco, and it's an honor to be here today with all of you. So we know that in order for us to launch a campaign, we have to have a plan, and our plan has to be strategic. So I'm going to walk you through the steps that we have developed with our broad coalition, which is one of our key strategies. What's the plan for us to win? Our plan to win is... Oh, there you go. So one of the things that we need to do for our plan to be able to close this corporate loophole and to ensure that that money goes into our communities and to schools, One is that we need to be able to expand our coalition. Why is it that we need to expand the coalition? Right now, we have about 300 people or 300 partners that's growing, because we need to be able to ensure that people understand and know what is it that we're trying to do. And a coalition and pooling our resources is what's going to take us to the winning line. Second, we need to be able to build our movement, right? That's why we need this coalition. And third, we need to be able to educate. We need to be able to go out there and educate the public so they can understand what is it that we're trying to do and raise that awareness and be able to ensure that we get them out to vote on election day so we can win. This is really, really important. And I mentioned that we need to make sure that we need to expand the electorate. We need to ensure that we're talking to our families, our friends, our neighbors, and everyone to understand why is it that schools and communities first is going to close this loophole. And if you give them an example that Chevron has not paid over $100 million in corporate taxes, and that money should be coming to our communities, they will be with us, and they understand why we need to ensure that that loophole closes. Lastly, we know that if we're going to win, we need resources. We know that we need to make sure that we continue to raise funds so we can expand our efforts and be able to win and ensure that we win on November of 2020. And this is the plan. And we also know that in California, we set the trend of what's going to happen. We also know that we've seen it where when Prop 13 passed and other policies, we saw that this is something that the other states follow. So we need to make sure that we continue setting the trend moving forward to ensure that working families, we are actually getting what we deserve. And so so again, we need to continue growing our coalition. We need to be able to implement our 5 strategy steps that I laid out: building the coalition, raising funds, and educating the public. And I know that our next speaker is going to be speaking in terms of the next goals of our coalition.
Bravo.
All right, so we're going to get down to the nitty-gritty part of this training, which is actually how do you get those signatures collected. And we're going to actually split out. So for folks who are Spanish speakers, if you're bilingual or monolingual Spanish, we are going to have you go with Chema over here, who's going to do a training just in the next room across the hall. So folks who are bilingual, folks who are monolingual Spanish speakers can follow Chema. You want to do an announcement?
Buenos días. Si vamos a continuar el entrenamiento de cómo recabar firmas en el otro cuarto, entonces si hablan español, por favor, síganme.
Thanks, Chema. All right, so we'll just pause for a second, and folks who want to do that can get up and go across the room. Oops. All right. And for the rest of us, we're going to be doing the actual how do you get the signatures collected. So, oh, whoops, right in mind. Okay, also social media. So for folks who are on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, please tag the actual Twitter handle of this coalition, which is statewide, Schools First CA. And then we have a bunch of hashtags to use. And there's also the organizations who are part of this effort. We have them listed here, so please tag them as well. It's also on this concrete pillar up there. So we want to make sure everyone knows about this. So the next question, yes?
Yeah. What is the deadline? By what date do we need to gather the signatures? How many do we need?
Great question. I think the exact number is over 1 million. 1.5 million. Yeah, not that many, just 1.5.
When are they due?
They are due
March 20th, but we're trying to get over a third by the end of this year.
Yeah, so March 20th is our final deadline. We want to make good progress and get a third of that by the end of this year. And don't worry, we're not responsible for all 1.5 million. we actually have a paid signature gathering firm that the coalition statewide is paying people. So you see people at the BART station, at the Safeways. They're probably paid signature gatherers, so they're doing this as their job, and they're collecting the majority of the signatures, but volunteers need to do the rest, right? We're doing, I think, about 1/3 of the signatures, and that's still a lot, right? 1/3 of 1.5 million. So we got a work cut out for us, but we're not doing it alone. All right, so let me go over the signature gathering with you all. This is a pretty important part. It's a technical part. So who can collect signatures? Anyone over the age, 18 or over, right, David? Anyone who's 18 or over. So if you're not a citizen, if you're not a voter, you can't register to vote, that's okay. If you're 18 or over, then you can collect signatures, all right? All right, so anyone registered to vote, and one thing to be very careful of, because there are paid signature gatherers, there's also people who have competing measures with ours, and they're also gathering signatures. So we want to make sure that when you go out and talk to people on the street, you tell them this is for schools and communities first. And our petition is this one, which is the title and summary on the top of the petition is going to tell you exactly what it is. It's going to say generates X billions of dollars for the state. And we just want to know if you signed one person's petition, like say you went to Safeway and you signed a paid gather, like one of their paid signature gatherers petition, you shouldn't sign another one. Okay? We'll be penalized for that because they'll think we're trying to cheat. They'll think we're trying to get like double signatures. And so if somebody comes up to you and says, oh, I think I might have already signed that one at the farmer's market yesterday, you should be like, okay, well, if you're not sure, don't sign mine again. Because when the state checks the signatures, they will penalize us if we have doubles. Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
So I just wanted to suggest that we have a plan B because it's version 2.0. When someone says, I signed already,
Last year.
to me it makes sense to say when,
Yeah.
and say, because it was like, it was just this December,
Right,
you know?
right.
Say, if it was last spring, please sign again, because
Yeah.
it's sympathetic.
So that's a great point, Lita, is that some people might be like, I already signed this one last year. This is the version 2.0, so sign it again if you haven't signed it yet, starting now. Because they've only started gathering signatures since the end of October. So if they signed it last year, then they can definitely sign it again. Connie?
Is there a name that the bad guys have for their opposing initiative that we should be aware of, or no? Not yet.
Yeah, I think it's not a name that people would recognize, I don't think, but what their thing is going to be different is that for their measure, they only want the funding to go just to schools, right? It doesn't include the community part, and so that is one thing that will be different on the top of the petition. It'll say all funding goes to blah, 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 instead of our funding, which is 40% for schools and 60% for community services. Yeah. Yes.
I was looking at that competing
Yeah.
website, and it's called Full and Fair Funding.
Mm-hmm. Full and fair funding, right? So it might, but a lot of times the name isn't reflected on the actual petition. So yeah.
And I also I read an article that said Gavin Newsom might step in and try.
Gavin Newsom. So we're putting pressure on him. There's a whole statewide campaign to get him to side with ours. He hasn't done anything at this point, and we're going to make sure that we're going to go full court press on Gavin Newsom to make sure he's supporting this measure. So let me get to the actual train, you guys. I know, there's so many good questions. All right, so where can you gather signatures? Any public place, you have the right to gather signatures as long as you're not blocking traffic, right? As long as you're not standing right in front of the Safeway door, like blocking it, you're okay, right? You should do it at home. We've got a lot of different like winter breaks coming up, holidays, people are going home. If you live in California, your family's from California, go get some petitions and get your family and friends to sign it when you go home. In your neighborhood, you can definitely knock on your neighbor's doors. They just have to be a voter. At work, so I know we have a lot of labor unions here who are asking, well, what's the rule for collecting at my work? And you should talk with your representative at your union to get the exact protocol, because there might be specific rules for school sites versus for city and county employees. So basically talk to your rep. And then also places with lots of foot traffic. So college campuses are great, grocery stores, farmers markets, community events, street fairs. There's like a street fair in San Francisco every Saturday practically. So we have a lot of reasons and a lot of places to go get these signatures. All right, so you can pretty much do it anywhere. This is a sample script. We want to keep it really short and sweet because it's about quantity at this point, right? We just want to say to people, look, This is just giving us the chance to let voters decide. This is just putting it on the ballot so the voters can decide if they want this, right? Just because you sign this doesn't mean that you're voting for this, right? It's not for sure, right? But we want to give voters the opportunity to make that choice. So, really quick, short and sweet. Hey, can we get your signature that gives more funding for schools and local services? Who says no to more funding for schools and services? Most kind-hearted people like us?
Oligarchs.
Yes. Oligarchs, yeah, those people. We don't want their signature anyway. Help us put our communities first by getting more money. This will give us $12 billion. That's a lot of money every year for schools and community services. This will make corporations and the rich pay their fair share in taxes, right? As long as the people know it's not impacting them, who here is down for taxing more rich people and corporations, right? I think most average people are. So that's all good. And we asked them, are you registered to vote in California? If you're not registered to vote here, you just moved here, sorry, you can't sign it. What county are you registered to vote in? So this is the part where Connie's getting to, which is each petition has to have the county listed on it, and you can't mix and match, okay? So let me actually get there to this part. So here's what it looks like. You can't read it, but this is the title and summary, which is like short explanation. What is a thing? It says $12 billion, money for schools, money for services, and then at the top of the signature boxes, that's where you write in the one county. So each petition can only have one county written on the top. So if you're in San Francisco and you're running into a bunch of people from Oakland who are visiting, they can't sign your San Francisco petition, but you can give them a new one that says Alameda County. Okay, so that's very important. Don't mix and match the counties. This is the part where the voters fill out. And you'll notice our petitions all have this little like 1918 like schoolhouse, right? None of our schools look like this, but it has this little symbol on it that you can recognize, oh, that's our petition, okay? So the voters fill out their information, and then the bottom here is the declaration of the circulator, which is us, the people collecting the signatures. So you have to put in your name, the place you collected it, all those details in order for this to be valid. So let's get into the
But you do not have to be from the county that you're collecting signatures for.
Correct. You do not need to be from the county where you're collecting these signatures. So just because I don't live in Santa Clara County doesn't mean I can't collect Santa Clara County signatures, right? If I run into somebody from there. Okay, so we already said this. County goes here. If the voters, okay, I already said all this. Never mind. Let's keep going. Okay, here's the section where they have to fill out. The voter has to do it themselves, and they must be registered in that county where it's for that petition. And they have to write legibly, because literally the state is going to do checks on this. You think 5 minutes left? All right, no problem. So they literally have to do checks where they will go and find people's names and look them up, and if it doesn't match, then they're like, okay, this whole sheet of petitions, throw it in the garbage. So we gotta make really good care that every voter we get, if they write, we can read it. They write the address where they're registered to vote, and they sign it, and they write the city and zip code, right? And try to keep it in the box. So a good trick is just asking them, oh, I can't quite read that. What does that say? Is that an A? Is that an E? And then get them to like be careful about writing it. No P.O. boxes. Nobody can write P.O. boxes because you cannot register to vote at P.O. boxes. The next part is the declaration of the circulator. That's us. So you print your name here. You write your address, your home address. It doesn't have to be like, if you're not a voter, that's okay. Just write your address where you live. And then you have to, it says, I am 18 years of age or older. And then you need to say here the dates that you got the signatures. So the date you started, right? And then once you finish the whole, there's like 9 spots, so once you finish all the 9 signatures, then you can write the date you ended, okay? So you can write the start date and keep the end date blank, right? Because you might not get all the ones you want today. And then I certify under penalty of perjury, blah, blah, blah. All this is true. And then the day that you executed on is the last day that you collected the signatures, okay? So if I get all 9 today, then I can write, today's date, the 16th, the year, and the place of the signing. That's where you collected the signatures. So if I'm going over to Whole Foods today and I'm collecting signatures there, I'm going to write place of signing is San Francisco. Just write the city where you're collecting the signatures, right? And even if I got someone's signature from Santa Clara, they're visiting from San Jose, I write place of signing, San Francisco, because that's where I actually got the signatures. And then I sign it. That's it. Any questions about the details of the petition? All right. Yes.
On the backside,
Yes.
fill in the.
Yes. Okay, yeah, so sorry, just to answer Zach's question, there is one little place on the back of the petition. On the very back page, it says what county, and it's just the same as the county you wrote on the first page. But yeah, it's a good
The county
question.
you gathered for, not the county you were necessarily living.
Correct, the county you gathered for those voters, yeah.
Can people write SF, or do they have to write out San Francisco?
Right, San Francisco, it could be San Fernando.
That's true, yeah. It's a big state, right? So let's just put San Francisco. Any other questions? All right. Hey, wow, we finished. Okay.
Oh my God, and we've got dogs in the picture. Woo! Amazing. Uno, dos, tres, big smiles. Woo! Okay, now let's get excited. Come on, people.
All right. So we're gonna say, what do you want? You say schools. When do we want them? Now. All right, ready? What do we want? Schools. When do we want them? Now. What do we want? Schools. When do we want them? Now. What do we want? Schools. When do we want them? Now. Let's throw a fist in the air. Throw a fist in the air.
All of us are members. All of us are members. All of us are members of the family. You need to remember as you carry out your plan. All of us are members of the family of